The Alto Knights. This is a movie that has just hit HBO Max. It's directed by Barry Levinson and is starring Robert De Niro as he plays dual roles in this movie, about a story of a power struggle between two old friends and their rise to the very top within the American Italian Mafia during the Prohibition era. And I'm gonna say, this is a cool movie, especially if you're someone who might be into the history and the stories of like the early days of the American Mafia or American Italian Mafia. And that someone is me. Movies like Casino, Goodfellas, Donnie Brasco, A Bronx Tale. These were all movies that I grew up watching. And I always found the stories of these mob bosses and their capos and people climbing up the ranks from being an associate just to being a made guy. I always found them really interesting and really entertaining to watch. I mean, if you didn't know, the mob was a very extremely influential part in American society for a cool amount of time. And honestly, that's putting it lightly. So I always get a kick out of these true stories or inspired by true event stories because I feel like it's a cooler way to have a history lesson. So honestly, I enjoyed this movie, but let's get into it a little bit. Robert De Niro does a great job at playing this dual role, and he manages to deliver a very distinct performance for both of these characters. A lot of that, granted, is help to the prosthetics that is put on him to kind of transform him into Vito Genovese. But as Frank Costello, we have this mild-tempered guy who focuses a little bit more on the money-making side of things, on being a little bit more incognito while making these business relationships with political officials to kind of remain under the radar and maintaining a good name with the public while making profit on the side and kind of bringing a time of peace and profit for the Luciano crime family. Vito Genovese, on the other hand, is a little bit more of a hothead. He's a little bit more of a loose cannon, has more of an aggressive approach to things. He doesn't like to be told no, and he's a bit more sloppy when it comes to doing his crimes, definitely demanding immediate action as opposed to careful planning to get the result that he wants. And like I said, De Niro did good. I mean, he's an OG, especially within this kind of genre of movie. He definitely delivered a great performance for both of these characters, making both of them different in the way that they sound and the cadence in their voice, having different mannerisms, different temperaments. And then again, with the prosthetics being thrown on him, I think did a lot of heavy lifting too. There were moments where it kind of threw me off early in the movie, but I learned to accept it, that this was both Robert De Niro. It was fine. It ended up working just well for me. As for the movie itself, I think that this movie does a decent job at kind of explaining how it was like in the Italian mob back from 1919 to 1957, and just how secretive they were able to be, hiding in plain sight, paying off police in order to remain under the radar. It took a lot of time from the time that they, came to America, and by the time they were really acknowledged and found out to be a huge crime syndicate, they were chilling for a cool while. Frank Costello is partially a narrator for this movie and kind of providing extra context to kind of fill you in between scenes and better inform you about what's going on. If you ever played the game Mafia 3, it's kind of like that, where, you do a scene, you have a cut scene, and then they go to like this interview and they're talking about stuff. Same kind of concept, but I did really enjoy this deeper look into a time that I'm not really familiar with, as opposed to like the 1970s era of mob crime families. We're following the very beginning, almost the start of the mob being in America, and that was pretty cool to see. Different era, very different ways of doing things. I will say though, for some people, me, honestly, the pacing is a little bit hard to deal with. Kind of reminds me of another one of Robert De Niro's movies called The Irishman. The movie's slow. It doesn't have a lot of sin as compared to dialogue. It deals with a lot more of the political side of the mob and the sit downs, the commission board, and more so the behind the scenes of what people are thinking and how they come to make certain decisions. Not a whole lot of bang bang shoot 'em up going on. And I can't really be mad at that. De Niro is 81 years old.
Damn! I'm sorry.
It would probably be pretty difficult to put him in a high action scene, but I will say that the dialogue itself was enough to keep me entertained. It's a 2 hour and 3 minute movie, and I was awake paying attention the whole time. Another gripe that I kind of have about the movie though is I think it's a shame that the movie spends so much time telling you about this relationship between Vito and Frank and how they are good friends. They've known each other since they were kids. They've been doing crimes together, working up the ranks, hanging out at the Alto Knights nightclub for years, and really kind of painting this picture of them almost being brothers. And I feel like it just mostly gets explained away with a few still shots here and there, a couple little flashback moments, but nothing really dove deeper into that side of things. Personally, for me, I would have loved to see like a small origin story, maybe in the beginning of the movie, or a little bit longer of flashbacks, kind of like if you've ever played the Mafia 2 game, the opening for that with Vito and Joe doing their little shenanigans and, you know, Vito getting caught up or something like that. But just being able to see them do all this stuff and make me believe a little bit more that they were tighter than what I thought, because I really didn't get so much the vibe that these guys were super close. But the movie kind of paints the picture that they were supposed to be. So I wish we would have got a little bit more of that. I will say too, while De Niro does a great job in his dual role, I can't help but think that it's a missed opportunity that they didn't get Pacino to play alongside him. I mean, let's be real. We don't know how many more of these movies we're gonna get from De Niro, and it would have been hella dope to be able to see two of the OGs in this genre of movie come together, and I think that they would have been able to work off each other really well for this one in particular. But as far as writing and like cinematography go, I think that the movie does well. It feels authentic to the times, and like they really took the time to do their research and make sure that they were telling a accurate story. The small history lessons that we get in this movie between like the mafia and politicians like J. Edgar Hoover were really cool things that I didn't know about this time period involving the mob and their ties with the government. Was really cool. At the end of the day, this is not going to be a movie for everybody. Like I said, I think you'll like it if you are somebody who enjoys these mob movies. If you had a good time watching Black Mass with Johnny Depp, I think that you'll like this movie too. Or if you enjoyed The Irishman, I think that you will like this movie too. If you got the time to spare, I think that you'll have a decent time with this one. It's just not going to be something that lands on everybody's TV, and that's okay. Mob movies, I think, are kind of like a niche amongst people. But as for me, I liked it. If you have HBO Max, go and check it out. Have you checked out the Alto Knights on HBO Max? If you have, leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought about it. That is where I'm gonna leave it off though, man. I am out of here. Y'all have a good one. Be smooth and stay geeked up.